This is the quilt we're working on today. It's called 9 o'clock sharp, and the name came from the mixture of 9 patches and hourglasses that are featured in this particular quilt. I'm Mary Corcoran, and now we're working on accurate 1/4-inch seams. And if you use pins, you need to know how to use them to help you, but you also need to know you don't need to have pins. So let's look at what pins can do for you. One of the tools that we sometimes use to help us with accurate piecing are pins. Quilters use pins to keep things together and in place where they need to be. And here's a range of pins. This one is a daisy head pin. These are sometimes called quilter's pins, and I don't know why. I guess you can use them to pin a quilt to a wall. I wouldn't use them for piecing. And these are super fine pins, and they are wonderful for piecing. And let's see why. So I'm going to pin my 2 strips together in order to have them stay in place while I sew. I'm going to use this quilter's pin, this big fat one. So if I go ahead and stick this in here, and that's how a lot of people pin, you'll notice that what happened was it disturbed things. It moved stuff around. So when you take a pin and stick it in perpendicular and then tilt it over, you've moved the fabric. And I can now see blue on this side. And I don't want that. I want to see no blue from this side and no pink from this side. So I'm going to realign them. And these thin, fine pins don't distort. But I also don't want to stick it in perpendicular. I want to stick it in as close to parallel as I can. I want to just slide it in from the side because that's not going to shift or move anything. There's more than one way to get an accurate 1/4-inch seam allowance. One is to have a 1/4-inch foot for your machine, and sometimes those help you be accurate and sometimes they can be a little misleading. So you want to double check and make sure that you and your 1/4-inch foot are working together. But if you don't have one, here's another way to get an accurate 1/4-inch seam allowance. What you want to do is take a ruler and put it under the needle and under the foot, and what I do is I lower the needle to exactly touch one of the 1/4-inch lines, and that I can lower the foot onto the ruler, and so the needle is touching the 1/4-inch line, the foot is down on top of the ruler, it's holding it in place, and I can take a piece of blue tape and lay it next to the ruler. So what I've done is I've put the needle down right on that 1/4-inch line, and then I can lower the presser foot on top of it, and the edge of the ruler now will give me a guideline on where to place my blue tape, and that's going to give me a 1/4-inch seam allowance. But you always want to check it. Once you've decided where this should go, sew a couple pieces of fabric together and check that it's accurate. It may need to be shifted a little bit one way or the other. It's not the magic of what the tape tells you, it's figuring it out and working it through. And if you've adjusted the tape a little bit and you know that you're getting an accurate 1/4-inch, then you're good to go. Once you've placed the blue tape on the machine bed, or you've put a 1/4-inch seam allowance foot on your machine, sometimes that's going to give you an accurate 1/4-inch, and sometimes you may find through practice that it's not exact. You may need to adjust a little bit, whether it's knowing that you're going to sew one thread over from what your foot says, or move your tape a little bit to get an accurate seam allowance. You want to test it so that you and your machine are working together and not just blindly going by what the ruler says or what the foot says. Okay, now you're ready to sew. Whether you've got your blue tape on your machine or a 1/4-inch foot, whether you've left these with a pins or decided to sew without. If you're going without pins, you do need to make sure that the 2 pieces of fabric stay together because you don't want to start having one fabric peek out from behind the other. So if you're going without pins, what I do is I get this under the machine ready to start, and I line up about 4 or 5 inches. And I'll use a stiletto. In this case, this is one of those things you use for your nails. You could use a seam ripper, or you could use one of those pricey but beautiful little fancy stilettos. So whatever your choice is, line up a little bit put the stiletto on the fabric, and now you're ready to sew until the stiletto gets. So we're going to go. Once the stiletto gets about that far away, we want to realign. Get our fabric right, put the stiletto on, and sew again. So you're going to sew in little 2 to 4 inch segments, making sure you stay lined up and using your stiletto and place of pins to hold the fabrics together and in place so you stay accurate. Once you have your 1/4 inch seam set up, you want to make sure that it's accurate. So do a little bit of the piecing and then check. And check out the next video to see what happens if you're off.